All right, one more thing. One more thing. I've been thinking about some basic mechanics, kind of going back to the roots of what we used to do on that other show that we don't talk about very often.
You mean Delve?
That one. Yeah, the Delve. We used to talk about some basic mechanics and stuff like that, and I thought that it would be nice to just kind of explain about one simple term on this segment, where we just explain what it is for people that are not familiar, and also why it's a really interesting idea that I personally wouldn't have come up with. And so, on this particular subject, segment, whatever I'm calling this, for this one, we're going to be talking a little bit about the term tapping. To tap a card. And it usually...
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about, like, tapping a tree.
That's why I thought I would be more specific.
Or tapping that... no, we can't talk about that one. We're expletive, but not that expletive.
Tapping that like button.
Tapping that like button.
Tap that like button. Tappa, tappa, tappa. Tap it as many times as you want. It's the one right next to the bad button. But...
That's going to be the one that we're clipping out of context.
Welcome. Teaser! Anyway, so on this one I want, talking about the tapping mechanics, and it usually comes from collectible card games. Specifically, the actual term tap is used in Magic the Gathering, but there are similar mechanics in other games as well.
Yeah, they're just not called tapping.
Yeah.
Because Magic trademarked that, I believe.
It can only be used in the Magic, that term.
In the Magic.
In the Magics of the Gatherings. The Magics of the Gatherings. But basically, for those of you who are not aware or not familiar with collectible card games, when you have monsters or different artifacts and lands out and you expend them, what you do is you are supposed to tap, which means that you take your card from the vertical position, portrait, and you turn it to a landscape, the horizontal. And
you know, I always did like a 45-degree turn. I didn't really turn it sideways.
To be honest with you, I did too, but I think that they say you're supposed to turn, like, in all the examples that they show, like the diagrams, they always show it completely turned over.
All right.
But I think most people just didn't want to spend as much time, or the cards are too close, so they just like turn them over a little bit so they're not upright. But that is supposed to represent that indeed you have utilized the card and it is no longer usable until your next round. Pretty simple mechanic, pretty straightforward. You don't need anything else involved. But the reason why I find it so fascinating is because it is such an easy visual reference for everybody at the table to tell what is currently in play and what is not in play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I played Magic. I know what you mean.
You can see how that could have been much more complicated, though, right?
Sure, they could have been like, throw the cards out the window.
Throw the cards out the window.
All right, it's no longer in front of you. It's been expended. Like, it could have been like, tear up the... Could have been the Blacker Lotus. Like, when you use this card, tear it up.
Yeah, you can't use it no more. Sorry.
Talk about a collectible card game. Every card is a one-use only card. People just proxy the shit out of them then, but you know.
Oh my god. Did you ever see that meme that they made? I saw it going around. The Black Lotus. And somebody like had cut out the Black Lotus to make a coaster.
Yeah. No, I was thinking Chaos Confetti.
Oh, okay.
From the Unglued Unhinged sets, where it's tear up this card and toss it in the air and whatever it lands on is destroyed.
Nice. I kept thinking about the development of that, though, and how interesting it was that, you know, if you do have a rectangular card, being able to just turn it over to the side to make it clear to you and your opponent that that is not going to be utilized. There are cards where they don't actually tap. They stay in play. But again, if I'm playing against you, for instance, which I won't do because I don't want to.
Because I kick your ass.
You see, fun side story time. I have a Phage the Untouchable that I use in my black deck. It's my pure black deck. It siphons life. That's what I like to do. I like to take people's life totals and add it to mine. I have Phage the Untouchable. In case you're not familiar with that card, it's basically a legendary creature. If it deals any damage to a creature, that creature is destroyed and removed from the game. If it does any direct damage to a player, that player instantly loses the game. However, I should have been paying attention to what lands he had and had not tapped, because he still had a few islands, I believe, that were available, and were still in play.
Oh no, I was playing my black-red deck.
Oh, okay. So what did you use on me?
I believe it was a Backlash.
That sounds right. That's the one that damage that I would have done goes back and deals damage to...
Tap untapped. Tap target untapped creature and have it deal damage equal to its power to its controller.
Right. So what happened there was that he said, Phage is now going to deal that damage to you instead, and my own Phage killed me. So there's that.
Yeah.
Be very careful when you use Phage the Untouchable, because there are cards in Magic that will reflect damage and do other things like that, and you can kill yourself off real easy.
See, you explained your black deck was a siphon life deck, but my black-red deck is a kill creature gain life deck.
Yeah.
So it functions as a siphon life, kill creature, and then also has creatures reverting damage to their owner, because it's a very creatureless deck.
Right.
It's got like maybe four creatures in it.
Sure.
So the way I get around that to kill my opponent is to have their creatures kill them, and to then siphon life from them as well.
Yeah.
That deck is fun.
Sure. One of the things that I made a deck around too that actually used the tapping mechanic quite heavily was it was essentially a ping deck. And so I had like the, I want to say it was like stinging barriers, stuff like that, the goblin slingers. And so basically just a lot of different monsters, walls and stuff, and you tap those, you turn them over to the side, and they deal 1 damage direct to something. So you get enough of those out, you can essentially just destroy different creatures as they launch, even though you don't have a lot of defensive ability, or defensive abilities, yeah. You can
the way
still
to break and utilize that is with the Kiki Jiki Intruder Alarm combo.
Oh, okay.
From Kamigawa.
Oh.
Intruder Alarm is whenever creatures don't untap during their untapped steps. Whenever a creature comes into play, untap all creatures you control.
Right.
Kiki Jiki is a legendary creature that you can tap it to make a copy of a creature, put it into play with haste that disappears at the end of turn.
Okay.
So, utilizing those two together, you have an infinite combo creation kit for whatever the hell you want. So you go, oh, goblin slingers, they're pingers. All right, I make an army of infinite amount of pingers. They all tap. They deal infinite amount of damage to every target on the field.
Yeah.
I would use that with the Emberfist Zubera, which was, all right, whenever Emberfist Zubera goes into a graveyard of play, it deals damage equal to every other Zubera put into a graveyard that turn.
Right.
So I have an infinite amount of creatures that each deal an infinite amount of damage to a target.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now if you want another if you want another really simple way to actually deal with that, if you don't have a lot of card combos, if you do end up with something like, I want to say it's like a Tremor or an Earthquake card that will just deal like 1 or 3 damage to every creature on the field, you can eliminate a lot of those small pinging creatures pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So there's also that.
The other really fun one with the Kiki Jiki combo was Gemini Engine.
Oh.
Because when Gemini Engine attacks, it creates a copy of itself. So you just make an infinite number of Gemini Engines, that then attack and create an infinite number of copies of themselves that are also attacking. Because if you're doing infinite combos, you just want to absolutely fuck somebody.
Yeah, exactly. um, the reason why, back on subject, the reason why
This will be the extended version. You can cut out as much of that as you want. Leave that for the extended Patreon version.
yeah, somebody will like it. But
I think someone will get a kick out of it.
oh yeah. But what I find interesting, though, is just the idea that it's just such an easy visual reference, and it can be very complicated when you get into late game in a lot of CCGs, where you just have like a lot of stuff out on the field, and it can be very complicated for you to easily and quickly reference what is happening on the playing field. Depending on how many players you have and how heavy they are into artifacts and everything like that and lands, so that also I can tell what kind of capabilities my opponent has even when I'm on, when it's, my turn. Because I want to know, like, what lands do they have untapped, because I want to know if they're trying to use a counter, some kind of instant,
some kind of murder instant,
waiting for me to do something, or waiting to use one of the activated powers on the cards.
Yeah.
And I find that it's a very easy mechanic to utilize. I think that's why it's used in CCGs so often. But it does convey a lot of information very, very quickly without having to do a lot of, stat recording and everything like that about what's going on the field.
Right.
Yeah.
A different way you could do that with it, just as simple mechanic-wise and visual representation, would also be like tokens. For instance,
Sure.
if a creature has been expended, you can put a token on it, for instance. If it's tapped out, in this case, you'd be like, all right, well, now put a token on that. Because it's been used, it can't be used again. The issue you have with that is then it becomes a lot messier. It's still a good visual representation,
Sure.
but it's a lot more physical stuff you have to move around. So
Yeah.
it becomes infinitely more busy than just tapping a card sideways.
Right. I think it's the convenience and the less moving parts involved, which I really
Right.
appreciate. From a design perspective, that's really useful. Because, especially with something that you're taking on the go and that you might just have your deck with you, and you don't want to have to carry too much stuff, because that's one of the advantages of collectible card games. Is
Also very true.
yeah, you can take it with you and go places with it. That I have the deck of cards, I don't want to carry a whole lot of other stuff with me. Because, I mean, I do have a bag of the individual tokens and stuff, but I don't really need to have that most of the
You
time.
don't really want to use them.
No, you don't want to carry around a giant bead bag with you when you're going around. So
I'm wondering if anyone's ever taken and instead of the tap mechanic, they did a slide mechanic. So like, instead of taking your card and turning it this way, they're just like, yeah, move your card up half an inch.
oh yeah, I've seen that too.
Oh, is that a thing?
I've seen
have
some.
not.
I've seen some people do something similar to that. I think the one problem is that then you have to have like all of your cards in a uniform size. So it
That's
gets.
what playmats are for, Nathan.
But then I have to have a playmat with me. See, now I gotta carry
And peripheries now.
now more even peripheries. It's like when
Stay tuned for the TPK playmat.
oh, perfect. Nobody wants that. What we'll do for the playmat though is we'll have the actual D20 logo, and you have to put the cards in the little spots on the logo. Perfect.
That's how you summon demons.
That's how you summon demons. You put 6 of them on the little things, and you've created a sectagram. Sectagram. Hey, and that means that's all the number of creatures that you can actually put into play. We have a maximum creature count for you.
That's a different game idea entirely.
Yeah, that's a different game entirely. Yeah, no, I prefer not to have any more peripheries than I really need to have. It was why, like, when people talk to me about D&D, I was like, oh, so how do you play that? And they were like, oh, well, you have the books. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, you have the books. Yeah, well, then you also have the character sheets, and there's also the GM screen, the DM screen that you put across, and you're probably going to need to make some notes and get a notepad and stuff. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, yeah, how much? You need a dice bag. Get a dice bag. It's like, oh, no, this is not nearly as few things as I thought.
I see the reason why that you never got into, like, Warhammer.
Oh, yeah, no, I can't
how
carry
many-
that much stuff.
What do I need? Well, you need an army. All right, an army. All right, so that's what? A couple guys? It's like, oh, it's like 40 or 50 models. Oh, okay. And then you need a book. Okay, a book. All right, but then you need another book for your army. Not the same book? Not the same book. Different book. You got your rule book, your army book. Okay. Your opponent needs a book for their army and 40 to 50 models or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then...
And then you need about 100 dice. What?
And then...
And then you need paints, super glue, and hours of free time.
But then... And then... You need a battlefield.
And then you need a tape measure and props and a battlefield and a table that's at least a good 6x4.
Yep. So... Probably not something that you're taking to the park or a bistro.
Why are you playing games at a bistro?
Because if I didn't, then I'd have to remind myself that I'm in a bistro.
Yeah, but the food would be... Anyways.
You put the cards on the food!
No.
You put the cards on the food, and that's how you do a card game. There should be a card game that's just about food.
There probably is.
There-
But,
Yes.
just in my head now, we need to make a game
Mm-hmm.
that can be played with business cards.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
And then you have to pick out certain words or something that actually
No,
have
we'll
value.
figure it out later.
Okay. Business business CCG.
Yes.
Collectible business card game.
Yep.
A CBCG. A BCG.
Sure.
BCG. Business card game.
There you go. Perfect.
We're totally calling it that.
Yep.
No idea how it works. Don't care. Just... and we probably won't put much thought into it, but it will be on a Kickstarter near you probably pretty soon. We'll work it out.